Hey everyone, Rudros here along with my good friend Daniel, some maybe better known as Ghoul02 depending on his Twitch channel, but he's one of my good friends and testing partners. We're very good FF chums. Daniel, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Good, good. Well, this was your idea, which is kind of nice. Usually I'm always planning something for the channel, but you had a great idea today, so what is that idea?
Well, first of all, I want to say congrats again winning RVA this week, as always.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's a deck profile that people might want to check out if they're interested in that deck, right?
Oh, absolutely. We'll link that in the description below. Yeah, we're recording this Wednesday night about an hour or two after the RVA weekly, which I was just victorious in. Hooray!
All right, so if you haven't played it before, there's a alternate format in Final Fantasy called Boss Deck, or Boss Fight. And what it is it's a 3v1 format where one person plays the boss and three people play constructed level decks. Like, you can play whatever the nastiest thing you could think of against this deck, and you would be shocked at how well this thing holds its own in a 1v3 scenario. It's really, really fun. It's really interesting. It's kind of the closest thing to like a commander format for Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And what's really fun about this is that this boss deck was printed back right before the release of Opus 13, if you want like a reference for the time frame. And what they did for this is they decided they were going to print the most broken cards they could think of and take these older cards, these old legends, and print the most busted, slap on the craziest effects they could think of. And I thought it would be fun. We're in Opus 18 now. How crazy would these cards be if they were printed today? So we're going to go down card by card for all the boss deck exclusive cards, and we're going to see how good these cards would be if they were printed today.
Excellent, excellent. So we'll see if these were printed in standard, just how darn good would they be. All right, let us get started. So first we have Chaos. So Chaos, he can't leave the field due to your opponent's summons or abilities. And then when he's on the field, he can produce CP of any element. You can also remove Chaos from the game as an action ability to either break a light forward or play a card named Feral Chaos from your hand onto the field.
The thing that makes him really broken in boss deck is the boss starts with Chaos on the field.
Yes. Chaos and Spiritus.
In general, I mean, this is just like a slightly power crept version of like Opus 1 Chaos. I think this is probably okay, right? Like the main like extra utility is like if there's like a ninja, they can't break this. Or I think the really strange one is that this is a Neo X Death out, because I think if they like have Neo X Death, you can choose to send Chaos, and then Chaos can't leave the field, so it's fine.
Yep.
But yeah, what do you think, Travis?
At first I was like, well, this is obviously broken because it's Chaos, but rereading it, if you were to just put this card alone in standard, Feral Chaos isn't really worth playing, even though using him at instant speed like as a blocker is pretty nutty. But again, the boss version I think is a little different. I don't think the boss version punishes you the normal version does. So honestly, beyond that, I mean, having a card that cannot leave the field sounds insanely strong. But for the excuse me, for the most part, there isn't really a lot of like 2 CP backup hate anyway. So I don't know how often a card like this even would leave the field. So thinking about it, I actually think it'd probably be fine.
Yeah, I think honestly the breaking a light forward for free is maybe actually like you have an action ability that just at any time break a light forward is almost the craziest line of text on the card that makes him different from normal Chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, the only like outright, oh, that's not fair, is that it does crap on Neo X Death, but does anyone really care if Neo X Death gets crap on?
I would actually print 20 of this, like make this card every backup, so we can just...
Exactly. All right. So after Chaos, sorry, go ahead. Were you
up next? I was gonna say, we want to alternate.
Yeah, go ahead. You do the next one.
So up next we have Spiritus. He is a 4 CP backup job god. He also cannot leave the field due to your opponent's summons or abilities. He has the normal line of text from Chaos that says you can play 2 or more dark characters onto the field, because Chaos can leave the field. They want to make sure you can play all your dark cards. And you can discard dark element cards from your hand to produce CP. Dark cards produce 2 CP each. What do you think, Travis?
So comparing him to normal Spiritus, he's very similar, except he has multi-CP production, and he doesn't search out a dark one on entry. Again, like Chaos, he can't leave the field. I think that's a little more broken on a 4 CP backup, because there is a lot of hate for 4 cost backups and higher. So that actually would be pretty relevant, that, they can't hit him with Wedge and Avalanche. And then, yeah, I think he'd be pretty, but because you could just load up a deck with dark cards, and as long as Spiritus is on the field, you can discard them all. And again, they can't get rid of this card. So I think this one actually would be pretty busted even today.
Not sure about that. I think like it would be good, but you'd also it'd be really bricky, because like if you don't see the Spiritus, you would be stuck with just all these dark cards in your hand. And he's a 4-cost backup that doesn't do anything on entry.
Also true.
And also, you can't play him onto the field if you have a dark card. So if you lit up on all these dark cards and you have to emergency play one, the Spiritus that would now let your deck function is now rotting in your hand.
You're right, yeah.
So I think he would be strong. I think this card could actually be printed and be okay.
Yeah, it would all depend on the sequencing. You're right. If you saw them in the wrong order, it would just be Brick City. But, man, if you saw them in the right order...
See the Neo X death followed up by the Kadaj at the same time. And then also you could run all the Sephiroths you ever wanted to and not worry about because you could just discard them. But I don't know, like a 4 CP backup that doesn't do anything on entry, it would have to be this good, I think, to actually see play.
That's a good point. Yeah, you make a good argument for that. All right, next we have Garland. This is the starter. When you play boss deck, Garland, Spiritus, and Chaos are the 3 cards that automatically start on the field. Other than his 10k power, he's just, he's nothing. Like, it's cool that he's brave and he'll always be a 14k when attacked. So big bodies are awesome, but even in the boss deck, you never actually want to play this card. Like, if he didn't start on the field for free, he's not good because, again, you can dull freeze him, you can break him outright, and honestly, Fire has enough firepower these days to deal these kind of insane numbers. So, yeah, this one wouldn't see play. Although, other than the fact that Garland Knights are like, but even still...
I don't think he'd even see play in that deck, to be honest.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is if you play against the boss and there's any bounce in your deck, you bounce this back to your hand, and the boss will never play the Garland back to the field.
Yeah, if he didn't start on the field, you'd never see him.
Yeah, no, this card is actually just bad, which is funny. It's great in boss deck. It does what it's supposed to do. It's kind of like giving the boss early damage pressure.
Yeah.
But, would not see any play in Constructed.
Yep.
All right, up next we have the villain of Final Fantasy XIV. We have Xenos, 4CP EX, forward, job general. Haste Brave, EX burst. When Xenos deals damage to your opponent, choose one forward opponent controls, deal it 10,000 damage. What do you think, Travis?
Busted. When I play the boss, this is the card I'm always looking for. It has an EX burst for some reason, because it's the boss deck. Like, could you imagine...
Oh, they are so happy with the EX burst in the boss deck. They love their EX burst.
So it can attack immediately, and it's a 10k. So either way, he says, I'm taking something off of your board. If he gets damage, he's not only hit you for damage, and he takes something off the board. If you block something, okay, well, he's going to get something anyway. Like, especially with the burst, man, this is like what Galuf wishes he was.
I'm going to be honest. I think this is actually close.
Really?
I think if you take away the EX burst and maybe make it like an 8k ping or something, or make him like an 8k power.
Yeah.
It's not, to me, that far off of Hien.
Yeah, I guess I can see the argument.
Like, Hien's like got the double attacking thing. Like, Hien's in Samurais, or like, he'll have a twin-headed dragon on field. Like, there's enough ways to kind of get a similar ping off of Hien. I think it's close. Now, that said, it's very strong. This would be one of the strongest legends in the game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this would be, I feel like, an auto-include in any fight. Like, why would you play Squall when you can play this and just whoop?
Yeah. I think it's close. Again, you cut a couple little things off here or there, trim it down. I think it would be a really cool card, actually, for that.
Yeah, if you trimmed it up, but as is, I think it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, he's definitely too good as is. You'd have to trim something. A lot of these you could just ignore the EX burst and pretend it's not there. The EX burst breaks a lot of the cards in the boss deck.
Speaking of which, Nail, EX burst. This one's somewhat similar. So when he enters the field, you reveal 5 from the top of the deck. You add up to 5 forwards among them to your hand, put the rest of the cards into the break zone, and then you remove a backup from the game. Nail gains 2,000 power and haste. Remove 2 backups, choose a forward, deal 10,000 damage. That effect definitely fell off as the game went on. In the boss deck, they can have 10 backups, so yada, yada, yada. I will say, though, in this one, man, you could do an oops all forwards deck with this guy, and he says draw 5 cards on entry.
This thing is more than busted.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, back when we were doing, like, the Stern versus Dale decks, if you had access to this and that? Just, like, no, this thing is way too... Like, Nail as is, with, like, the reveal 3, add 2 forwards, is already, like, a borderline playable card in some deck. This guy literally would let you go... If you just... turn 1, played Nail, like pitch 3, play him, you could still draw a card off of him. And like Verstale is that, but way worse in every way. Like this card is busted.
Yeah, especially in the burst to boot. Blech.
Why does he have a burst? Just draw 4 on a burst.
Because the boss needs it, baby.
Oh man.
All right. Oh, this is my favorite one next. Go ahead.
So we have Orphan, EX, of course. Forward, job, Fal C. When Orphan enters the field or attacks, choose up to 3 characters opponent controls, dull, and freeze them.
This should be
this thing.
this should be printed for real because it should be in every ice deck.
I will say it's almost closer than I would like to admit.
Right?
To being.
Mainly just because ice is so weak right now, right?
I mean, like, the main thing, like, if it was just enters the field or just attacks, you could print it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you
For
took
sure.
off the burst and took off one of the others.
What makes this really frustrating in the boss deck is when the boss plays the Orphan, freezes someone's 3 backups, then swings Orphan and freezes the same player's 3 backups, and that player just doesn't get to play the game for 3 turns.
Yep.
Until the Orphan leaves. And like doing that in Constructed might be a little too good.
Yeah. As the card is written, this is too strong, but I would like to see something like this in ice where, 1, it actually has a relevant burst, 2, it can hit multiple things at once, because a lot of times that's ice's issue, is that it still has a lot of target that thing individually, so something that could hit a bunch. Go ahead.
6 CP is very expensive.
Also true.
Like, this really is not far off. Like, if it was 2 characters, it may even be actually playable as is, to be totally honest. It would be very, very strong.
Yeah.
But, like, if you play it, it's like there'd be a weird timing thing where if you play it too soon, they wouldn't have things for you to dull freeze, and they would have the cards in hand for the removal. If you played it too late, maybe they could just play around it and say, okay, you're going to get 3 things, but I'm going to hit you. I think the scary thing about this would be if you could combine this with discards, your opponent has no cards in hand and like only a couple backups, you could just lock them out of the game entirely.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, next, Shadow Lord. So he's a 2-cost, 9k, brave. EX burst of cards cannot be put into damage zone due to Shadow Lord. What do you think?
It's not far off. I'll be honest. This seems like the kind of a legend they would print.
It's pretty similar to his actual version. Like, this is one of the closest ones.
Yeah. I think if you chopped off like 1,000 power, this would be fun.
I actually think this is totally printed. Because, again, his normal version does the exact same thing, except 1, it has a downside entry effect that potentially lets him play backup, and 2, you have to pay an Earth CP to give him that power. But, I mean, really, other than that, he's almost the same card. Like, and that came out in Opus 12.
It's pretty close. No, you could probably print this. Like I said, my only fear is that like 9k is very large.
Yeah, it is.
CP. So like he'd be a big turd.
If they felt that was too, they could do something like he has to be paid with Earth CP, or he's got to have whatever minor restriction on him. But
yeah,
shuts off.
No, you're right. You could probably print this and it would still be okay.
Yeah, I think so. All right, who we got next?
We have Golbez. This is a forward 8 CP. The cost required to cast Golbez is reduced by 1 for every 5 cards in your break zone. When Golbez enters the field, choose a forward. It costs 5 or less in your break zone. Play it onto the field. I kind of want to see this printed.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't this the normal Golbez card minus the burst? Because he's 8 cost too, right? And he gets reduced.
Is it 5 or less?
I thought it was, or maybe it's less than that. But
I'd have to look that up. But this card seems cool.
Because to me, I think it's almost the same card minus the burst. Let me check it really quick. FF.
No, it's the exact same card. No, it adds it to your hand instead of playing it to the field.
Oh, okay.
That's a big difference.
Gotcha.
That's a big difference.
Okay, that makes sense. I was like, wait a minute, isn't this almost the same thing?
So it's kind of like a Lena or like an Alfino that like. I think there's enough break zone hate where it'd be kind of risky to run in your deck, and I think the reward is really cool, like a late game card that plays something big from your break zone.
I'll be honest, even if this was printed as is, sans the burst, because the burst is insane. But let's say there's no EX burst, I don't think this would even see play, because there's so much other free break zone recursion. Like,
I think it would see play in the same way Lena. This is kind of like Lena.
Yeah, I guess it kind of is.
I like kind of squint a little bit, especially because like lightning can kind of mill itself with stuff like Axis. 5 CP 9k that also plays another card from the break zone onto the field. I think he would see play. He'd be solid. But no, print this card. Put it in the game. I'd love to see it.
Interesting. All right. Next we have Garland. First strike, 3 cost 9k. When Garland enters the field, choose a forward of cost 3 or less opponent controls. Break it. What do you think?
I think the only thing that's like really off on this is the fact that it's a 3 CP 9k.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they wouldn't print on this. A 3 CP lightning card that breaks a 3 cost forward or less on entry is nothing special.
I mean, I don't know. I think this is pretty good, but maybe I'm biased because of the original version. So the original version has the downside of you had to put one of your own cards in the break zone just to play him, and he didn't have any entry effect. But
you could probably print this.
I think I honestly, Lightning could probably use a good legend like this.
Yeah, and also Garland could be a name that could be totally use this as well.
Right. All right, you got the next one.
All right, Feral Chaos. 5 CP forward, Utter Pandemonium. He's also card named Chaos at all situations, and he has all of the keywords except for back attack. And then when he leaves the field, you can add a Chaos removed from the game. The idea is that you can remove the Chaos, play Feral Chaos. When Feral Chaos dies, you get the Chaos.
Yeah, which technically gives him the back attack if you play it with the Chaos, because that can spring him in at any time.
I think you could print this.
I think so too. He's really just a beater. Like he's a little unfair with the Chaos when you can instant speed get him in. But other than that, again, you can dull freeze him, you can break him, you can make him lose his abilities, you hit him with fire damage. Like he's and we're in a meta right now where like body, if stuff is just a body, it tends to not matter as much. So
yeah, it is kind of funny that like the original version of this card, like every time he attacks or blocks, you have to sacrifice a character.
Yeah,
and this one is like. We're saying you could just remove that restriction entirely and give him a random upside that wouldn't really come up.
Yeah, well, and especially he's still a dark card too. He's still a card that you can't discard.
Yeah, for CP, would you ever play this over like a Neo X Death? Probably not.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Or a Shinryu, which is like a board wipe or something. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I wouldn't.
You could print this. All right, Sin. Oh boy. So Sin. When Sin enters the field, break all the forwards and monsters opponent controls. And then Giga Graviton at the end of your next turn. If Sin is on the field, your opponent loses the game. You can only use it during your turn. Almost identical to the main card. The only difference is he doesn't deal you a point of damage when he enters.
He also, I think he breaks your own forwards when he enters on the real card too.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, he breaks everything other than himself, and then he deals you a point of damage. I've been thinking about that Sin lately because monsters are kind of getting silly now. Like, where monsters are getting so good that you can Shantoto a player. It's like, well, I've got 3 monsters, so none of them get affected by that. So I've been kind of wanting for a forward that didn't, that deals with the monsters. And I think you could print this, honestly. Honestly,
you could 100% print this.
I don't know if he can even see much play. It depends. Like, it really, because I don't know. He's still 9. He's still a dark card. You're still never going to do Giga Graviton.
Can you imagine getting Amaterasu on this entry?
No, exactly. Yeah, and things like Amaterasu, yeah, this could absolutely...
Or Phoenix. Like, if you have enough to pay 9 to break all of your opponent's forwards and go for game, you're winning that game anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could print this. Like I said, the dark restriction is so big, too. Because, I mean, it's interesting because it would be like a generic board wipe that you could tech if your deck is really weak to it.
Yeah.
But also, you're still running a dark card that's really situational and hard to cast.
Mm-hmm.
Like... It'd be interesting. I think this would be a cool card to see printed.
I think so too. And like you said, with all the auto ability cancels running around anyway, there's a chance that even if it was printed, it still wouldn't see any play.
That would be so painful.
I know. Okay, you got the next one.
All right, we have Cloud of Darkness, Forward Wraith. At the end of each of your turns, remove the top card of your deck from the game. Cloud of Darkness gains 2,000 power for each card removed by this ability. When she leaves the field, add all of the cards removed by this ability to your hand. It is Dark Guts Go.
Yeah, I was going to say, the joke was when Opus 14 came out, someone said when they saw Guts Go, oh, they just printed the Cloud of Darkness boss card. Like, yeah, so this card does already exist. I mean, he doesn't get the 2K buff, but I don't think that even matters.
I mean, he also gets the card immediately. If you kill Cloud of Darkness before the end phase, you don't get the card.
That's true. Yeah, his is faster. He does require you to attack, but again, no one's ever cared about that because it's like, please give me my cards back. So.
I want this card, actually. I wish this is what the starter deck Cloud of Darkness was. I think this is a cool card.
Yeah. I don't think it would even see play because Guts Go's already better and he's not dark.
Yeah, I mean, it's a world where you see it. Like a different, like maybe like in a win deck that like wants to play a forward down that like will slowly draw them advantage, like in an aggro matchup. Like,
yeah.
I could see it seeing play in the right deck. But, no, it would be really cool. I think this card is great.
Yeah, absolutely print it. If it doesn't already exist. Emperor! Go ahead.
Emperor, it's a 2 CP backup job Emperor. EX burst when he enters the field, choose 2 forwards, dole them and freeze them. You can dole the Emperor and discard a card to choose a dole forward and break it. So you can only use this ability during your turn.
Pretty similar to his starter version. Some differences, of course. Go ahead.
What's the starter version of this card?
So the starter version, it's a 2 cost. It has an EX burst. However, It dull freezes a single forward, and it only does that if you're on damage 4. But the action ability is, I think you got to pay for it.
It's ice, dull, discard 2.
Yeah, that's right. You have to this is obviously just a cheaper, more efficient version of it.
This is really close to being, because I really like the idea, like the synergy of like you play the Emperor, you dull and freeze a forward, and then like next turn you like dull the Emperor, discard a card, and break the card you've dull frozen.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really sick combo. The question is that, so that's what? That's 2 CP for the dull freeze, at which point they still get to keep any on-field effects of the card.
Mm-hmm.
And then next turn, you're giving up 1 CP because you're dulling the Emperor, you're discarding a card, so 3 CP to break a dull forward on command.
Yeah.
I think you could print this as a legend level backup.
Yeah, if it was a legend, I think it'd be fine. If it wasn't a legend, you could maybe take the burst off, but I would love to see Ice get a card like this.
I think you could take the burst off, or you could say 1 forward.
Yeah.
I think the idea of like 1 forward holds it in place, and then next turn like kind of punches and kills it. Like that's kind of like cool thematically too.
Yeah. Well, and I like it because it would fit into that slot of it'd be good anti-aggro, but if you see this early, it doesn't hit backup, so like you're just putting it down just to get a backup out of it. So yeah, it might be a little annoying. Dull Freeze 2 on a burst is pretty strong, but again, I don't know. Maybe I'm biased because it's ice, but their bursts are just so bad.
I think my only fear with this would be Ice Earth.
Yeah, that's
where
true.
You'd give Ice Earth another form of perpetual removal and like the ability to stall out even more than they already can.
So yeah, maybe if you again had some kind of mono limit, like hey, it has to be an ice or something like that.
Oh no, if this was in pure ice, I think this is a fantastic card. So yeah, maybe you can only have ice backups if you're playing this.
Yeah, good call. All right, next we've got Kefka, 4-cost backup mage. He just has 1 ability. You dull him, choose a forward you control. Until the end of the turn, it gains 10,000 power and brave. Okay, so the action ability is obviously insane. I know we talk about backups that don't do anything on entry, but man, if this is your first backup and you now have an ability that says my forwards will never die to damage, is pretty nuts. That at the same time, it could be broken, targeted. You can still stack on top of it, but I don't know, man. 10k is a lot that you can use on their turn as well. It's hard for me to judge on this one. What do you think?
It reminds me a lot of Galuf, the new legend, in a way, where it's like Galuf is obviously crazy, but he's considered slow. And granted, Kefka is easier to protect in a way.
Yeah.
But also, like, Kefka's not really acting as removal. He just kind of says 1 forward is really, really, really big every turn.
Right. Also true.
And you're right. You could snipe it on the stack. Like, I don't think this is better than Yuffie. Like, I don't think 10k Brave is better than what Yuffie does to herself.
Yeah.
By any stretch of the imagination. You can give Yuffie first strike even for pretty similar costs.
So you're saying they could print this?
Yeah, I think they could. I don't know that I want to play against it sometimes.
Yeah. I say that now, and there may be some matches where I'm like, I take that back. I don't want this printed.
Yeah, I mean, like, and again, you if they have forwards, you can dull freeze them out of the way, at which point the 10,000 power doesn't do anything.
Right.
You can 4-cost backups are pretty vulnerable relative to other backups. I'm worried about like fire maybe not having a way to get over the forward, but they should have summons that can ping it on the stack as well, right?
Yeah, in theory. So
it would be very, very good, I think. It's might be what you have to do on a backup that doesn't do anything on entry to be good for 4 CP.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we'll say print it, but we might regret that. All right, who do we got next?
We got Seymour, Cat 10 backup, summoner, very easy. EX burst, when he enters the field, choose a forward, break it.
So the only difference from his original one, I think, was limited to, was it 3 or less? I think he had like a cost. Yeah, and he didn't have a burst, I don't believe, either.
Yeah.
So indiscriminate backup break on a burst. What do you think?
I think you could. I think this could exist. Maybe at 5. Definitely at 6. I think you could probably print it at 4. It would be okay.
I hate the fact that you're probably right, because an indiscriminate break on a backup with a burst is bleh. But I've also always said backups that have entry effects with removal are always a little awkward, right? Because what if you see this turn 1? Like, are you going to not play a backup holding the Seymour? I mean, maybe you could, but yeah, maybe you could print this one. That kind of scares me a little that this is where the game's at, but I think you're right. I think you could print this.
I mean, like comparing it to some other stuff we have in the format right now, you have like the Tifa rare from last set, where it's like it's a 9K ping on burst.
Yeah.
That's effectively the same thing. That's going to kill everything except for I guess like 10Ks, but
Right.
like
Which are very rare.
And then like, sure, she costs a little bit more, but she kind of has like some upside as well.
Yeah. No, that's a good point if you compare it that way. Yeah, I guess we should print it. All right, next one, Ultimecia. When Ultimecia enters the field, you reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, play up to 1 character among them onto the field, and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. And then you can Duller and Breaker, choose a forward, put it on top of its owner's deck. Very different from the original card. A similar kind of flavor, but this one's obviously way, way stronger since it plays it right to the field. And I think the original messed with forwards. Yeah, I don't want to see a card like this because it goes in with the philosophy that I've been arguing against, where it's cheaper and it's free. And I don't like the idea of, oh, look at this insane card I just flipped off the top. Don't mind if I do. Especially if you're doing this turn 1. Like, oh my god, can you imagine the value?
It doesn't matter what you hit turn 1. You could hit... oh, hey, I hit a 2 CP backup. Cool, I just played a 4 CP backup that got me 2 backups.
Exactly. Yeah. No, please don't print this.
She's not that far off in some ways, though. She's kind of like a self-Mind Flayer.
Yeah, in a way.
I guess the difference is the Mind Flayer does not leave a backup behind unless you get a backup off of your opponent's deck.
Yeah, which is also true.
So, like, she's definitely too good. But it does kind of scare you when you realize people don't play Mind Flayer, and this kind of does something similar.
Right. Yeah. Oh, man.
It is kind of different, though, because I guess, like, your own deck is different from hitting your opponent's deck as well.
Yeah.
So
you can technically design around things you could potentially want to hit. And you could use things like the old Opus 10 Leviathan, purposely stack something on top of your deck, play Ultimecia. Oh, look what I hit. And it's 2 cards. There's a bunch of cards they have printed that, like, oh, you reveal 1, and like the Rosa, but this one, you get 2 choices.
I think the biggest thing is that, like, you could jam this turn 1, and it literally does not matter what you hit.
Yeah, unless you hit the other 2 copies of Ultimecia or summons, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, this one's way too good.
Yep.
I think the only way they could have made it more broken was put an EX burst on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, oh my goodness. Keep it out of there. All right, you got a simple one.
Ifrit, summon, EX, choose a forward, 10k damage for 1 CP.
It's a bit much.
A little overkill.
Yeah, just a bit. Considering
the summons in this are so funny.
Yeah, they are.
This one's obviously too good, I think. Can you imagine Iridia free casting this?
Oh, well, and then that's like let's all pray we never get to the day where, like, oh yeah, 10k on 1 cost, that's no big deal. Like, let's hope that never happens. All right, who do I have? Diabolos. So you select up to 2 of the 4 following actions. Choose a character of 5 or more, break it. Character of 4 or less, break it. Activate all forwards, activate all backups. The final 2 lines are the exact same as the original Diabolos, and then they obviously modified the 5/4 from the original one. What do you think?
You couldn't print this.
100% agree. If it said forwards, maybe, but if it can just,
I don't even think you could do that. I
think it's just too strong. Yeah, it is.
Like, we're already scared. We're scared of Cerberus already.
That's a good point.
This is like Cerberus that like does both. And if you don't need to activate your backups, if you're really getting rushed down by like a samurai player, you just go Diabolos, your Tenzen, and your Cyan are both dead.
That's a good point. What am I thinking?
5 CP.
What am I smoking? This is a win card. Get it out of here. Don't print this.
Yeah, I think this one's a little too good. Yeah. No, thank you.
Keep him off the rails. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Well, all right. Well, what do you think of this one?
I don't think it's far off. I'll be honest.
I mean,
I think you cut the burst.
7 CP break 3. Well,
If you're gonna pay 7 CP for a summon, you better be getting something close to this good.
Yeah, that's a sad thing to think about, but you're right, because like, so to me, I always kind of compare 7 to Shantoto. For 7 CP, Shantoto leaves behind a backup with multicolors and gets rid of everything on the board. So yeah, a summon for 7. Maybe you're right. Maybe the burst makes it insane. Of course, you can't.
The burst is crazy. You have to, or you have to have like a separate line of text where it's like, if this triggered off of an EX burst, you can only choose 1 forward.
Yeah.
For Like it's just a straight power cut version of the original. But I think if you remove the burst, you could print this.
What if it said 2? Is that too weak? Would you pay 7 for a lightning summon to break 2 forwards?
I mean, it would be the best Odin in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
By far.
Because to me, 3 is almost a little too much, but I'm trying to genuinely think. In today's game, would I want to pay 7 for an instant? I mean, it's instant speed, so you can do it on their turn.
Yeah, you could probably do that. I don't think that would be a problem. The EX is still a little scary with 2, but...
Yeah, I think you have to get rid of the EX, or like you said, put in a clause that says...
But how much scarier is that than 6 CP Leviathan? 6 CP Leviathan says bounce a forward and stack a lighter dark forward.
Or get back the best thing in your break zone, yeah.
We have 7 CP Lightning, which says remove 2 forwards your opponent controls from the game, and sure, they get them back if Lightning dies, but...
Okay, anyone watching this, let me know in the comments specifically about this Odin, because I think 2 would be okay. I think paying 7 to break, but 3 still feels a little... Ugh, I don't know about that one. I don't know about Sans Burst, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's also, like, Leviathan, like, is 9 to, like, kill 3 things and remove a backup, and, like, also have this, like, crazy, powerful recursion engine on your field or, like, removal engine on your field. Like, it's about the going rate for removing 3 forwards, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Tifa Special, the new one, is 6 CP that does, I think it's 8k to 3 different forwards.
Yeah.
Doom of the Living.
Yeah.
You can easily Doom of the Living for 4 CP and break 4 forwards.
Although they would argue that's a special. See, and the thing is, too, not just Mono Lightning. I don't know if I want Man in Black bringing this thing back over and over again. Or Kryl. I don't know. Yeah, this one I'd have to really see.
It's funny because, like, I could see myself hating this card if it was printed, but I think you could print this.
Okay. Well, I'll remain unknown, and yeah, folks, let me know about this Odin specifically.
Yeah, it would be a big buff to Earth Lightning.
Yeah. Okay, Leviathan, going back to these old ones. Similar boss upgrade buff, so you choose up to 3 forwards, return them to their owner's hand, and on a burst. What do you think?
This is busted.
Yeah, absolutely.
1 CP, per forward, remove 3 things. Do not ever let me see this with Folka and Shrosa around.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. No thanks. We're good. Yeah, and in water summons, of course, Yuna, it could make it 1 cheaper. Like.
Oh, I didn't even think of Yuna.
Yeah. Even without the burst, like, I don't think you couldn't even do 2 forwards on this one. Like, if you could do a 2-cost summon, take 2 things off your field, nah.
Now, what if it said 2 forwards your opponent controls and 1 you control, but you have to do all 3?
I still feel like that would just get open for abuse. Like, cool, I'll bounce my Ash that I'll replay for 1 CP. Like, I think that would still only benefit the person using it.
Yeah, bounce your Leo.
Yeah. Oh God, please no. Yeah, I don't think this one can work in any capacity.
Yeah, no, I think you talked me out of it with the. I already have some PTSD from Ash.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was the EX burst.
All right, who do we got next?
Zodiark, Keeper of Precepts. You control a dark forward. The cost to cast Zodiark, Keeper of Precepts, is reduced by 3. Break all the forwards opponent controls.
Luckily, I still think this is too strong. I don't think
this is.
Yeah, instant speed on when they go to combat, and you just go, okay, well, your entire board's gone. Like, if we were debating the Odin, saying for the same cost, I don't care if it's dark, and it could become 3 cheaper. Yeah, no thanks.
Now, hear me out.
Okay, sell me on it.
What if it's dual-sided?
So it hits the whole board.
The whole board. It's a Shantoto from hand.
That's a little better, but they think that Hecaton Kyre, like, they think it needs to be limited to your turn, and that's cheaper, and it only does 8k. They view Indiscriminate Break as, like, the strongest form of removal. Because it gets around things like Iridia Protection, and there's very few things in the game that have the outright break protection. So even if it was double, I don't know, man. Like, that just sounds absurd. You go to combat. Oh, gotcha.
You're right. It might have to be double-sided, and you might have to cast it on your turn specifically.
If it was limited to your turn, then I think I'd be okay with it, if it was double-sided.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you run to the point, like, would people play it at that point? Because then it's a dark card that
Right. Maybe not.
that's where like that's the thing about like light and dark cards. It's so hard to actually balance them because like the cost of running light and dark cards is so high.
Yeah. All right. So next is Vayne.
It's
Somewhat
gonna be an
similar
interesting
to,
one.
Yeah. Somewhat similar to his original one. Forward's opponent control won't activate at the controller's active phase. Vayne enters the field, dull all forwards opponent controls, and then Force of Will for just a Vayne-S freeze all forwards. What do you think?
Close, actually, which is a little scary.
It's pretty gross.
It's really, really, really good. But does he do enough? Actually, is
Yeah, I actually wonder if this could be printed, just because of things like Porum. Okay, it can just turn him off entirely. He can be Amaterasu. He can be removed.
Porum would not interact with him at all
Why wouldn't Porum interact with him?
because you can't do anything in your active phase to interact with the Vayne. So you'd go to your active phase and you would try to activate, and your forwards wouldn't activate.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. So Porum won't mess with him.
So
Well,
Porum
still,
wouldn't mess with them.
Amaterasu,
Like basically,
he's still an 8K. You could kill him in many like, and it's okay. You can play a new forward. So like, yes, he'll hit what's on the field. Okay, well, cool. Now I'll play this new Typhon or whatever, and then now he's. I don't know. Maybe this sounds insane, but I wonder if you could print this one.
it would be such a scary card for Ice Lightning.
It would be. That's my. Is that it? Man.
But like we have a lot of similar effects. We have Shantoto for
Yeah.
the dull all forwards, and that's at instant speed during your opponent's turn, just whenever you want. From hand, no Amaterasu, no nothing.
That's true. That is true.
The special's really good, admittedly, but I mean, I don't even think 60p dull freeze all your opponent's forwards would be crazy to print, to be honest.
Yeah. Especially because if they have any, like if they have an Asura or anything that activates forwards, okay, cool. Well, I'll just reactivate them all anyway. Like, He's hard.
It
to
would
judge.
be really obnoxious. It would be one of the best closing cards in the game.
Yeah.
I think you could print it.
He's hard to judge, but I think you could print this, which is crazy to say out loud. Okay. Who do we have next?
We got Kuja, forward, genome, category, Dissidia, and 9 EX burst when he enters the field. Choose 3 forwards or monsters opponent controls. Dull and freeze them. Put 2 ice backups into the break zone. Play him onto the field. You can use this during your main phase if he's in the break zone.
I think his. Oh, go ahead.
I say he's Shiva.
Yeah, basically.
He plays from the break zone. Shiva has to flicker herself, but Shiva can do it at instant speed on both players' turns. Shiva, I think, is indiscriminate on the backups. She can put any backups.
Yeah.
I think this is totally fine. The EX burst might be a little on the strong side, but
I think the action ability is actually a great improvement over his original form. His original form, it was the same thing except he just came to your hand, so then you still had to cast him, and he only targeted one forward or monster. So 3 is a lot, but again, it's not characters; it's forwards or monsters. So I think if you took off either the EX or reduced the number that he hit, I think this is totally printable.
And I also think that the ice backup specifically does a lot of heavy lifting here because this is not splashable in Ice Earth as easily.
Correct.
Like I guess you could break a Arcanist, and the scary thing is he could send a Shantoto to the break zone.
Yeah, that part alone is a little. Ugh.
But I mean, again, they're gonna then replay Shantoto. Like, that's probably okay at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, in a world with Amaterasu and Leviathan and Fina and ways to go, oh, that's nice, cancel it.
Or you just go like they put the 2 backups into the break zone. You just go, okay, Mist Dragon.
Exactly.
You now killed 2 backups and you didn't get anything out of it.
I think a burst with 3 targets is a little strong. So either I would want to see the burst go away, or maybe take it down to 2.
Yeah, I think
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, either of those would be fine.
All right. Who's up next?
We got Arden, 5 CP EX, forward, Chief Minister, category 15. When Arden enters the field, she's up to 3 forwards opponent controls that cannot attack or block until the end of the next turn. When Arden is put from the field into the break zone, play Arden onto the field at the end of the turn.
Busted. This card, so this is the like hard version. The normal Arden, I think, is in the normal boss deck, but this one's just, I mean, it's a burst. 3 things can attack or block for a whole nother turn, and then anytime he dies, he immediately comes back that turn and then locks out another 3 things. Like, what?
I I almost think if you didn't say until the end of the next turn, he might not be that crazy.
But is that really good then? Because then it means when he returns from the break zone, he doesn't do anything. Unless you're
You'd have
just
to
saying...
like play out of the break zone like the start of main phase 1 or something instead.
Yeah.
He's probably too good, but same because like the attack and block denial is part of the reason Man in Black is so good as well.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to compare this like to other cards like Man in Black. A lot of that utility ends up being why the card is so crazy. The recursion is really nice, and sure, there's ways of stopping that. Like you could, Miss Dragon. You could, any number of ways to remove a card from your opponent's break zone. But is that, too good still? Probably. Yeah, this is a little too good.
Yeah, because especially if you're playing a deck with no break zone hate, they just have an unkillable forward that just comes back immediately.
End of the turn.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he would just be obnoxious too because you just have a 9K blocker every single turn too.
Yeah, I think he's a bit too good. All right, who's next?
We got Galdes, FFC category FFCC forward job Archbishop. When Galdes is put from the field into the break zone, select up to 3 of the 3 following actions. Your opponent randomly discards a card from their hand. Choose a character other than card named Galdes in your break zone and add it to your hand. Choose a forward, it loses 10,000 power until the end of the turn. What do you think?
A bit much. The original Galdes has very similar effects, but you have to pick one of the 3, and the power reduction was only 5,000. Getting all 3 of those, like, I know you gotta wait for him to die, and yeah, you could Amaterasu it, but like, could you imagine if that goes off, you lose a random card, they get back the best thing from your, and it kills a forward, and he blocked, of course, like, even as a dart card, all 3 of those together seems a little much.
All right. So hear me out. What if we said 2 of the following 3?
That would be more manageable. Yeah, I think 2 could be more manageable.
So you get a discard and kill something, or like get a card back and a discard. Maybe the power reduction is to go to back to 5K.
Yeah, because 10K says kill anything in the game, which is pretty silly.
So instead of that, like minus 5K, get a character back and a random discard, or even just not a random discard, just a discard.
Yeah,
I think you could print that.
Yeah, that I think you
probably
could
see play.
I think that you could print. All right, who's next? X-Death. When X-Death enters the field, choose up to 3 forwards among all break zones. Play all the forwards among them of cost equal to or less than the number of backups you control onto your field. I love using this card in the boss deck because, again, you can get up to 10 backups. You can play anything you absolutely want. Of course, in Standard, you're limited to 5. But still, could you imagine... it's not like it's a combined cost. If it was a combined cost... Maybe you could print it like the total cost has to be 5. So, okay, I can get a 1, a 2, and a 2, or a 3, 2, or a 4 and a 1. But getting 5 cost forwards for free from either break zone is way too much.
The other thing is you could choose your own break zone.
I know.
You could just play your own busted stuff, too. Yeah, I think, honestly, if you said instead, like, whose total equals... Like, so you could play like any number of up to 3 forwards of cost 5 or less if you play this as your last backup.
Yeah.
You could print that.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a cool card. I'd like to see that printed.
Yeah. Because the base version it's the same thing except it's 1 forward equal to backups. But obviously they bumped this one up to 3. All right. Ooh, I'm curious to know what you think of this one. Go ahead.
Zolera the Death Seraph. EX Burst, of course. Break all the forwards of cost 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and 13 opponent controls. This thing's busted.
Yes, absolutely. Especially with a burst. I do like Ice does need a good board wipey type summon. I like that it doesn't target Dull. I think Ice is honestly past that point. So I think you could, with some tweaking, print something similar to this. I think because you still are keeping the prime numbers. So again, something like Soirees or for those 4, it still sucks against those. I don't think you can have this on a burst, or it needs to be like double-sided then if you're like going to keep the burst. So I would like to see something like this with some tweaking. What would you do?
Obviously, axe the burst. You can't have the burst in this card. some combination of restrictions of saying all your backups have to be
Ice.
maybe
yeah.
it like only dulls them if you have, you know how like Carbuncle gets better if you have only Earth backups.
Yeah.
Maybe you make it like Carbuncle where it's like dull all the forwards of these costs your opponent controls. If you have nothing but ice backups, break them instead. But also make it you can only cast it on your turn. You can't do this on your opponent's turn.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Or you can say this can only be cast with ice CP. Of course, then something like Rydia could cast it for free, but
yeah, there's definitely ways to kind of tweak this and like kind of sort of like squint and make it work, but definitely as is, this
Yeah.
thing is buffed.
4.
Every ice deck would run 3 of this.
Yeah.
And do not let me imagine a world where Ice Earth has access to this card.
Yeah, please no. Oh, I think that's our last one.
I say, especially because Ice Earth already has so much fun with Soiree too.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
like, so they already like auto win Soiree by putting down a single Arcanist. Imagine if they just auto win every other matchup by having this card in
Yeah.
systems.
No kidding. Well, looks
And yeah,
like
that is
was
our last
one.
card.
Interesting. So some of them actually could be printed, which is kind of crazy, the state of the game. Some of them are still too strong. EX bursts, I think, make a huge difference on a good chunk of these.
I will say something that's kind of fun, at least, or nice about this. At least, like, all the cards that we said could be printed probably would have to take a legend slot. None of these are hero ones.
Sure.
Except for, I guess, Cloud of Darkness.
Yeah, exactly. That's a rare.
Poor Cloud of Darkness. I will say, I actually think Cloud of Darkness would be a really, really cool card that I wish was in the game. I wish you could play this version of the card.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But yeah, I think every other card that we said you could print would probably have to be like legend to be like the right power level for it.
Yeah.
But no, definitely kind of a fun thought experiment. Like, how far has the game come? And again, this was what they thought Opus 13 was like.
Right?
You know,
oh,
like,
absolutely.
And again, if you play this today, first of all, like, you know, if you have a friend group that plays locally, have somebody pick this up because it's like, I think I got mine for $30, and I've had a blast with it.
Yeah, they're
Like,
really fun.
both with the normal version and the powered up version. And you would be shocked at how often the boss will win against modern constructed tier 1 decks.
Mhm.
Hint. Prioritize 7 CP Sephiroth before your opponents have Amaterasu.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, turns out making everybody else discard 2 cards, so you get 6 cards discarded off of Sephiroth is a little good.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm
do you
excited.
have any other thoughts?
I'm just excited to see what they put in the next boss deck, because surely
I'm so excited.
it'll be a similar thing, right? They'll have like souped up versions of quote unquote normal cards. So
We've got a glimpse at one of them actually, which is kind of fun.
yeah, who was it?
It was Sephiroth. They made it the starter Sephiroth.
Yeah, okay.
So we don't know the cost. I'm assuming it's probably the card you start with. But it's when he attacks, you dull all the forwards your opponent controls. And then at the end of each of your turns, you remove the break zone of all opponents.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
So I'm assuming it's the Garland replacement probably.
Yeah,
Where it's like during
makes
your
sense.
setup, you don't get to keep the cards you're pitching, and you know, kind of like Garland. Like nobody ever blocks Garland profitably.
Yeah, exactly.
Same idea. Like you never block Sephiroth. So
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. Folks, let me know what you thought below about the boss monsters. And Daniel, thank you for coming on and sharing that with me. That was very fun to do.
yeah, sounds great.
Excellent.
Hope to do it again soon.
Absolutely. All right, well, let us know what you think in the comments below. If you like what you see here, you can always like and subscribe. And there's a Patreon if you're interested in donating. But nonetheless, I'm grateful to have you around. Till next time, take care.